Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, the channel where we explore the boundless horizons of human imagination and resilience. Today's story dives into an epic tale of defiance, ingenuity, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Get ready to discover how humans turned a looming alien threat into their greatest triumph. Let's begin. The invasion began without warning, a phenomenon that first appeared as an ordinary meteor shower streaking across the night sky. People worldwide gazed upward in awe, oblivious to the disaster hurtling toward them. Within hours, the lights of those meteors intensified, revealing sleek, otherworldly vessels descending into Earth's atmosphere. The ships were massive, far larger than any human-made craft, shimmering with alien alloys that defied explanation. They came in a terrifying silence, their enormity casting shadows that swallowed entire cities. From the largest of the ships, an ominous broadcast emerged. It was not a language but a raw, visceral sound that bypassed comprehension and struck straight into the primal core of every listener. Moments later, the noise coalesced into decipherable words in every human tongue: surrender, obey, resist, and perish. The voice belonged to the Othrex dominion, a species feared across galaxies. They were conquerors of worlds, their empire spanning systems untold. To them, Earth was not a battleground but a quarry, one more planet to be stripped bare of its resources and assimilated into their dominion. The Othrex had no use for human lives. They saw Earth's inhabitants as little more than vermin, primitive creatures barely worth the effort of extermination. Across the globe, panic erupted. News outlets scrambled to interpret the threat while leaders convened emergency meetings. Humanity had faced existential threats before: nuclear wars, pandemics, natural disasters, but this was beyond comprehension. Every satellite, every radar screen, and every telescope confirmed the same terrifying truth: Earth was hopelessly outmatched. The Othrex ships were equipped with weapons, so advanced they could annihilate entire cities with a single pulse of energy. No nation, no alliance, no defense system could stand against them. To prove their dominance, the Othrex made an example of humanity. A single warship hovered over one of Earth's largest cities. With an unfeeling precision, it unleashed a beam of light brighter than the sun, reducing the metropolis to a smoldering wasteland in seconds. The destruction was so sudden, so absolute, that those who witnessed it could scarcely believe their eyes. Where once stood towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and millions of lives, there was now only silence and ash. The message was clear: humanity's survival hinged on submission. But despite the overwhelming odds, surrender was not universal. As fear swept the globe, a simmering defiance began to take hold. Humanity had always been underestimated by nature, by its own creations, and now by an alien force that knew nothing of Earth's history. Across continents, whispers of resistance grew louder. Scientists, engineers, and strategists began to work in secret. The world's brightest minds pooled their knowledge, hunting for any potential weakness in their alien adversaries. There was no guarantee of success, no promise that humanity could win, but they had one thing the Othrex couldn't comprehend: an unshakable will to fight back, no matter the cost. As the alien ships loomed in the sky, humanity stood at the brink of annihilation. Yet, beneath the fear, a spark of defiance flickered. It was a spark that the Othrex would soon come to regret igniting. The ultimatum delivered by the Othrex was clear, but humanity's hesitation in responding was met with brutal precision. The aliens chose their next move not as an act of warfare, but as a display of dominance. Hovering over the densely populated city of Johannesburg, an Othrex warship descended slowly, its metallic hull shimmering with iridescent colors that seemed to ripple unnaturally. Billions of humans watched through screens as a beam of pure, blinding energy erupted from the ship, obliterating the city in an instant. There was no explosion, no debris flung into the atmosphere, just a flash of light, and then silence. When the dust settled, what remained was a vast crater of smoldering earth. Everything: buildings, vehicles, infrastructure, and life itself had been vaporized. The sheer efficiency of the destruction was almost as horrifying as its scale. It wasn't just an attack, it was a message. The aliens wanted humanity to understand the futility of resistance. They could end civilizations with a gesture, wielding power far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. The broadcast returned, the same chilling voice speaking with emotionless certainty: resist, and this fate will consume your world. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Governments across the globe faltered, unsure whether to prepare for war, negotiate, or capitulate entirely. Panic erupted in the streets of every major city. Banks collapsed as citizens rushed to withdraw money. Supermarkets were raided in waves of desperation. Social media became a cacophony of fear, anger, and conspiracy theories. Yet amidst the chaos, pockets of defiance began to take shape. Humans had always been stubborn, driven by an instinctive need to survive. Leaders, scientists, and strategists convened in the shadows, away from the prying eyes of the Othrex, to discuss the impossible, how to fight back against an enemy that seemed invincible. But the task was daunting. Humanity had no weaponry capable of penetrating the Othrex ships, and their technology was so far advanced it seemed almost magical. The Othrex were masters of subjugation, their empire spanning hundreds of star systems. Every civilization they had encountered had fallen before them. By all logical accounts, Earth was doomed. Yet human history whispered a different story. Time and again, humanity had faced threats that seemed insurmountable. The Ice Ages, global pandemics, world wars each had pushed humans to the brink, yet they had endured, adapted, and risen stronger. This time, they would have to do the same. In the wake of Johannesburg's destruction, something unexpected began to happen. Fear gave way to anger. The Othrex had underestimated humanity's resilience. They didn't understand what it meant to fight for survival, not out of greed or conquest, but for the simple right to exist. Across the world, underground movements formed. Scientists and engineers began analyzing the Othrex broadcasts, searching for patterns and vulnerabilities. Hackers worked tirelessly to infiltrate alien signals, hoping to glean any insight into their systems. Though the Othrex saw humanity as insignificant, they had made a grave miscalculation. Their warning, intended to crush Earth's spirit, had instead sparked a collective determination. Humans were cornered animals now, and there was no species more dangerous than one with its back against the wall. In the skies above, the alien ships loomed as an ever-present reminder of the peril Earth faced. But below, in secret labs and hidden bunkers, humanity was preparing to defy its would-be conquerors. They knew their chances were slim, but survival was never about odds. It was about fighting, no matter how hopeless it seemed. The Othrex had demanded submission, but humanity's response was far more complicated. They would not kneel. They would not beg. They would fight, and in doing so, they would make the Othrex regret ever threatening their home. The Othrex had made their position clear: submit or perish. But Earth's leaders, scientists, and strategists knew they could not afford to bow to such tyranny. In secret locations across the globe, humanity began devising a desperate plan. The challenge was immense. The Othrex were technologically superior, their ships impervious to human weapons, their communication encrypted, and their tactics refined over centuries of galactic conquest. Yet humanity had one advantage the Othrex seemed to overlook: adaptability. The first step was to understand the enemy. The Othrex broadcasts, filled with warnings and demands, became the subject of intense analysis. Linguists, cryptographers, and AI specialists worked around the clock, dissecting every word and tone for patterns. What they found was intriguing. The Othrex communication systems were not entirely impenetrable. Though advanced, they relied heavily on centralized coordination, a network so vast and interconnected that it was both their strength and their Achilles heel. If this network could be disrupted, the Othrex forces might descend into chaos. Next came the technological challenge. Humanity had never encountered systems as sophisticated as the Othrex's. Their ships operated on energy sources unknown to Earth. Their weapons employed principles that defied human physics, and their defenses rendered conventional warfare useless. But humans were nothing if not resourceful. In secret bunkers and repurposed factories, engineers and hackers pooled their knowledge. They built prototypes of electromagnetic devices designed to interfere with the Othrex's systems. Drones were equipped with stealth technology to approach the alien ships undetected. Ground-based supercomputers were reprogrammed to launch coordinated cyber attacks, targeting the Othrex's centralized network. Time was the enemy. The Othrex ships continued to hover ominously, their weapons ready to strike at any sign of resistance. Every day felt like borrowed time, every hour a step closer to annihilation. Yet, despite the urgency, humanity's ingenuity began to shine. The breakthroughs were small at first, a crack in the encryption here, a vulnerability in their sensors there. But each discovery added to a growing picture. The Othrex were not invincible. The plan that emerged was audacious, bordering on reckless. A simultaneous strike would be launched across the globe. Drones and stealth bombers would target the Othrex ships' communication hubs, while cyber attacks would disrupt their encrypted networks. The final blow would be delivered by an experimental electromagnetic pulse, an EMP so powerful it could disable the alien ship's advanced systems. It was a long shot, and everyone involved knew it. There was no guarantee the EMP would work, no certainty that the Othrex network could be disrupted. If even one part of the plan failed, the retaliation would be swift and absolute. But the alternative was worse: submission, slavery, or extinction. Humanity had no choice but to take the risk. The world's governments coordinated their resources in secret, deploying every drone, satellite, and weapon they could muster. Civilians, unaware of the plan, continued to live under the shadow of the Othrex ships, their fear palpable. But beneath the surface, a quiet defiance grew. This was humanity's greatest strength, its ability to innovate in the face of despair, to find hope when all seemed lost. The Othrex had underestimated their prey. They thought Earth was just another conquest, another planet to bend to their will. What they didn't realize was that humanity had been fighting for survival since its earliest days. The plan was not just a strategy, it was a declaration. Humanity would not go quietly into subjugation. If the Othrex wanted Earth, they would have to fight for it. And in that fight, humanity would make them regret ever setting foot on this tiny blue planet. The night of the counterstrike was eerily quiet, as if the Earth itself was holding its breath. Across the globe, the final pieces of humanity's audacious plan were being set into motion. Secret bases buzzed with activity, satellites adjusted their orbits, and drones armed with experimental technology took to the skies. The world had prepared for this moment in silence, with no broadcasts, no grand declarations. The Othrex could not know what was coming. The operation began at precisely 3 UK. In coordinated waves, hundreds of stealth drones emerged from hidden launch sites, their matte black surfaces designed to evade both radar and visual detection. These drones carried the first strike, precision-targeted electromagnetic emitters meant to disable the Othrex ship's outer defenses. Unlike conventional missiles, these devices didn't rely on brute force. Instead, they emitted bursts of disruptive energy, scrambling the intricate systems that powered the alien fleet's shields and sensors. The Othrex, accustomed to crushing resistance with ease, were caught entirely off guard. Alarms sounded across their warships as critical systems began to flicker and malfunction. Shields flickered and failed, sensors went blind, and their previously impenetrable networks became vulnerable. The aliens, for the first time in millennia, found themselves unable to rely on their overwhelming technological superiority. But humanity's attack didn't stop there. As the Othrex scrambled to assess the damage, the second phase of the operation commenced. Ground-based supercomputers modified and enhanced with every ounce of computational power Earth could muster launched an all-out cyber assault. A barrage of code, specifically designed to exploit the vulnerabilities discovered in the Othrex network, hammered their communications and control systems. The Othrex fleet relied on centralized coordination. Their ships were not autonomous. They operated as part of a vast, interconnected web controlled by a central AI housed within their command ship. This system, designed for efficiency and domination, was now working against them. As humanity's cyber attacks tore through the network, the fleet descended into chaos. Orders were garbled, weapons refused to fire, and entire ships became unresponsive. The third and final phase of the counterstrike was the riskiest. High above the Earth, a human-built spacecraft, modified in secret and equipped with an experimental electromagnetic pulse device, approached the Othrex command ship. The craft had been launched days earlier, its trajectory carefully calculated to evade detection. Now, as the Othrex scrambled to regain control of their fleet, the human ship detonated its payload. The EMP ripple spread outward, disabling not only the command ship but the entire fleet. Alien vessels went dark, their engines failing, their weapons falling silent. The massive warships that had once loomed so ominously over Earth now drifted aimlessly, powerless and exposed. For a moment, there was silence, a stunned stillness as humanity processed what it had just achieved. Against all odds, they had struck a crippling blow to an enemy that had seemed invincible. But the battle was far from over. The Othrex, though temporarily disabled, were not defeated. They were regrouping, and humanity knew the retaliation would be swift and brutal. Still, this victory, however fleeting, proved one critical truth. The Othrex were not gods. They could bleed, and they could be beaten. Humanity, through its ingenuity and unyielding determination, had shown the galaxy that it would not go quietly. The Othrex had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had found a species willing to fight with everything it had, a species that refused to be broken. As the night ended and the first rays of dawn spread across the sky, humanity prepared for the inevitable retaliation, knowing they had taken the first step in turning the tide. The Othrex had not anticipated failure. Their empire had spanned galaxies for millennia, subjugating countless civilizations with minimal resistance. To them, Earth was insignificant, a backwater planet inhabited by primitive beings. But humanity's unexpected counterstrike had not only damaged their fleet but also struck a blow to their pride. For the first time in generations, the Othrex had been humbled, and their response was as swift as it was brutal. As the Othrex command systems rebooted, their fleet reactivated with terrifying speed. Within hours, the alien ships that had been rendered powerless began to light up again, their systems gradually restoring functionality. The EMP had delayed them, but it had not been enough to destroy them. The Othrex were furious, and their next move was fueled by vengeance. The first target of their retaliation was an isolated region in the Pacific Ocean. The Othrex, having traced some of the electromagnetic signals back to hidden bases, unleashed a weapon unlike anything humanity had seen. A beam of pulsating energy descended from the sky, striking the ocean's surface. The water boiled instantly, creating a massive column of steam that ascended miles into the atmosphere. The heat was so intense it disrupted weather patterns, generating storms that lashed nearby coastlines. The message was clear. Humanity's defiance would not be tolerated. The Othrex began to systematically target areas they believed were critical to the counterstrike effort: industrial hubs, research facilities, and suspected military installations. Cities that had survived the initial invasion were now under siege, their populations fleeing in terror as the skies burned with alien firepower. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming retaliation, humanity did not crumble. Instead, the counterstrike had emboldened them. The knowledge that the Othrex were not invincible had spread like wildfire, fueling resistance movements in every corner of the globe. Civilians began to organize, transforming basements, schools, and abandoned factories into makeshift command centers. Hackers, engineers, and even hobbyists joined forces, creating tools and strategies to disrupt the alien occupation. The Othrex's overconfidence worked against them. Their tactics were brutal but predictable. They underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. While the aliens focused their efforts on large-scale destruction, small, agile human teams operated in the shadows. They struck at weak points, sabotaging Othrex supply lines, stealing alien technology, and spreading misinformation through the alien network. One of humanity's greatest triumphs came in the form of reverse engineering. A group of scientists, working out of a hidden lab in the Andes Mountains, managed to dismantle a damaged Othrex drone recovered during the initial counterstrike. What they discovered was groundbreaking. The Othrex technology, while advanced, relied on principles that humans could replicate, in some cases, improve upon. Within weeks, human-made weapons equipped with modified alien technology began to appear on the battlefield. These new tools leveled the playing field, allowing resistance fighters to destroy smaller Othrex ships and ground units. The tide of battle began to shift, albeit slowly, and at great cost. Despite their mounting losses, the Othrex refused to retreat. To them, Earth was no longer just a conquest, it was a matter of pride. They escalated their attacks, targeting densely populated areas to break humanity's spirit. But the harder they pushed, the more resilient humanity became. The retaliation was devastating, but it also revealed something critical: the Othrex were not infallible. Their vast empire was built on efficiency, not creativity. They lacked the adaptability that defined humanity. Every strike against Earth was met with a counterstrike, every act of destruction with an act of defiance. The Othrex had come to Earth believing they would face no resistance. Instead, they found a species willing to fight to the last breath. As the conflict raged on, it became clear that this war would not end in submission or conquest. It would end in the survival of one species and the ruin of the other. The war reached a critical juncture. Humanity, battered and bleeding but unbroken, had managed to claw its way out of despair. The once terrifying Othrex ships that had loomed above Earth, like harbingers of doom, now bore scars of battle. Resistance forces had managed to down several smaller vessels using reverse-engineered alien weaponry. The tides were shifting, but victory was far from certain. The secret to turning the tide lay buried within the Othrex network. For weeks, humanity's best minds had been working to crack the alien code. The Central Command AI that coordinated the fleet was an unfathomably complex system, but its design had a fatal flaw: over-reliance on efficiency. The Othrex had never needed to defend against cyber attacks before, and their network, though sophisticated, lacked the redundancies to handle sustained infiltration. It was in this weakness that humanity placed its hope. Scientists in underground labs built supercomputers using salvaged alien components, increasing their computational power exponentially. Hackers worked tirelessly to craft a virus capable of penetrating the Othrex network. The plan was as audacious as it was dangerous: to shut down the central AI and throw the fleet into disarray. But time was running out. The Othrex had regrouped, and their retaliation was more brutal than ever. Massive ships unleashed energy beams that carved gashes into the Earth's surface, turning entire regions into barren wastelands. The aliens, having failed to subdue humanity with fear, resorted to annihilation. Their goal was no longer conquest but extermination. Despite the devastation, the resistance pressed on. In the ruins of former cities, underground bunkers became hubs of coordination. Resistance fighters armed with modified alien weaponry launched daring raids against Othrex ground forces, capturing supplies and creating further chaos. Civilians risked their lives to ferry messages, food, and ammunition to the fighters. Humanity, fragmented and decentralized, was proving to be the Othrex's worst nightmare. The decisive moment came when the virus was ready. The operation was codenamed Pandora, for it was as much a gamble as it was a weapon. The virus would be uploaded through a captured Othrex drone, its systems modified to carry the payload directly into the central AI. The drone would need to infiltrate the Othrex flagship, an enormous vessel, hovering above the Atlantic Ocean, its size dwarfing anything humanity had ever seen. The operation required pinpoint precision. The drone, outfitted with stealth modifications, was launched under the cover of darkness. Satellites disabled Othrex sensors in the region, giving it a narrow window to approach undetected. As the drone reached the flagship, it transmitted the virus into the ship's systems. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. Then, like a ripple through a calm sea, the effects of the virus began to spread. Othrex ships around the world started to falter. Weapons refused to fire, engines powered down, and communication between vessels ceased. The once coordinated fleet descended into chaos, their centralized control severed. Human forces wasted no time exploiting the confusion. Resistance fighters launched an all-out assault on the disoriented Othrex, targeting their now vulnerable ships and ground units. Alien vessels that had once seemed invincible were destroyed by human ingenuity and sheer determination. The Othrex's overwhelming advantage had been neutralized. Their fleet, crippled and leaderless, was now little more than a collection of scattered ships. Humanity, once thought to be on the brink of extinction, had proven that even the mightiest empire could be brought low. But the battle was far from over. The virus had not completely destroyed the Othrex systems, and fragments of their fleet remained operational. Yet, for the first time since the invasion began, victory felt possible. Humanity had turned the tide, not with superior firepower, but with resilience, creativity, and an indomitable will to survive. The Othrex, who had come to Earth expecting easy subjugation, now faced a fight for their survival. The war was no longer about dominance, it was about endurance. And humanity had already proven it was a species that refused to die. The Othrex fleet was in shambles. What had once been a fearsome armada of indomitable warships now drifted aimlessly in Earth's orbit, their systems crippled and their forces scattered. The virus unleashed by humanity had done more than disrupt their central AI. It exposed the fragility of an empire built on overconfidence. Without the coordination of their network, the Othrex soldiers and commanders were disorganized, their strategies unraveling as they faced a species that refused to surrender. On Earth, the mood shifted from despair to cautious hope. Humanity had suffered unimaginable losses, and cities lay in ruins. Billions mourned the lives lost in the invasion. But the survivors were united in their resolve. For the first time, humanity wasn't just defending itself, it was taking the fight to the enemy. Resistance forces, now equipped with reverse-engineered alien weapons and ships, launched a global counteroffensive. Small human fleets, once insignificant against the massive Othrex vessels, began to push the aliens back. In a stunning twist, the humans used the Othrex's own technology against them, hacking into their remaining systems and repurposing their tools for destruction. The Othrex, unaccustomed to prolonged resistance, struggled to adapt. Their centuries of domination had made them complacent, reliant on their overwhelming technological superiority to crush any opposition. But humanity had turned the tables. The Othrex's advanced weapons, once symbols of their power, were now symbols of their vulnerability. The final turning point came when resistance leaders identified the source of the Othrex's power, their flagship, Vorik Prime. It was the largest and most heavily armed ship in the fleet, housing the remnants of the central AI that still coordinated what little resistance the aliens could muster. If humanity could destroy it, the Othrex forces would be completely severed from any semblance of leadership. A daring plan was devised. Using a captured Othrex vessel, a team of human scientists and engineers equipped it with a massive payload of explosives. The ship, piloted by an AI programmed for a one-way mission, would infiltrate the Vorik Prime and detonate within its core. The mission was dubbed Eclipse, and it represented humanity's final gamble. As the ship approached Vorik Prime, Earth's resistance forces launched a diversionary attack, drawing the Othrex's attention away from the lone vessel. The skies above Earth turned into a battlefield as human-modified ships engaged the remaining Othrex forces. Against all odds, the decoy worked. The explosive-laden ship slipped past the Othrex defenses and reached the flagship. When the explosion occurred, it was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The Vorik Prime erupted in a blinding light, fragments of its massive hull scattering across the void of space. The shockwave rippled through the Othrex fleet, and with their central AI destroyed, the remaining ships powered down, leaderless and defenseless. On Earth, people erupted into cheers. The war that had begun with humanity on the brink of extinction had ended in victory. The Othrex, who had come to Earth with threats of annihilation, were now fleeing remnants of a shattered empire. In the days that followed, humanity reflected on its triumph. The scars of war would take generations to heal, and the losses were staggering. But amidst the devastation, there was a newfound unity. Humanity had proven that even against impossible odds it could endure. And as the remnants of the Othrex fleet disappeared into the void, carrying news of their humiliating defeat, one question echoed across Earth. It was scrawled on banners in the ruins of cities, shouted by survivors in defiance, and etched into the annals of history. Is that all? The Othrex had underestimated humanity. They had believed that threats and overwhelming power would ensure submission. What they had failed to understand was that humans thrived in adversity. They were forged in the crucible of countless struggles. The Othrex had sought to conquer Earth but had instead ignited a fire that could never be extinguished. Humanity had survived. It had risen. And now, it was ready for whatever came next. Thanks for watching Starlight Sci-Fi. If you enjoyed this story of humanity's defiance and ingenuity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know in the comments what you think humanity's greatest strength is. Until next time, keep dreaming big and reaching for the stars.